Electricast.
Study
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
The best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet. And there's something I've been thinking a lot about lately about how we talk about decisions, especially the difficult ones, because what I'm finding is most of the time, our conversations tend to sound like you either know what you want or you don't, or you're either clear or you're confused, or you're either moving forward or you're stuck. And lately I've been wondering if that's actually true. Because what if the reason you haven't moved yet isn't because you're confused? I've been thinking more like, what if it's because both sides of the coin are actually true? And I've shared that before, that I have two businesses, right? I have the legal work that I do with the law firm, and then I have my coaching business. I have this podcast. I have the Faceless and Nameless Gatherings community that I'm building, the collaborations I'm building, and the work I feel called to do with the clients I work with. And if I'm being honest, I know what I want, right? Like I know I want to build my coaching business full time, that I want more freedom, more flexibility, more room in my life to have fun, more time to write even, time to travel, time to meet a friend for coffee in the middle of the day without feeling guilty about it just because I can, and I want to experience more of the life that I've worked so hard to create, the life that I envision. And I know all of that, right? But I also know what the law firm provides, because it provides dependable income, right? It's known, it's predictable, there's stability, security, and that's true. And for a long time, I thought one side of this decision would eventually become obvious to me, that freedom would eventually outweigh security, or that security would stop mattering, and then the decision would just become really easy, would become clear for me. But what I found is that neither has happened so far. And I think it's because I don't think it's a clarity problem. I think it's the tension of knowing what I want while still needing to feel safe enough to choose it. So, as I've shared before, I live in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, or as I would say in Spanish, which I'm just starting to learn Spanish, Viva aquí en Playa. I've been here almost 2 years now. It's beautiful. I mean, I really love it. There's so many people that are moving here actually from different parts of the world, and also from all other parts of Mexico. And it's a fan favorite vacation destination. There's beaches, there's restaurants, cafes, live music. And like I said, people from all over the world come here. I've met a lot of people from different places like the UK, Australia, from Thailand, from everywhere, Germany, you name it, they're here. And there's so much of life that's happening around me. And yet there's still weeks where I barely experience any of it. And it's not because I can't. It's because of how my days have been structured lately. I get up in the morning, I take Jack, my rescue dog, for his first walk of the day, and then I sit down at my laptop. I do a couple of things for myself, like my spiritual practice and some meditation, and then I get straight to work. I work on my business for a few hours, And then I shift into the law firm work for a few hours and I shift back into my business for a little bit more. And before I know it, the day's over. And even though I walk Jack a few times a day, I get to get up, obviously this is what's great about having a dog is that his needs need to be taken care of. And it's great because he gets me outside. I also stop to eat, making sure I have lunch. I have breakfast, I have lunch. I maybe even run a quick errand or two. But most of my day happens from the same chair, from my chair, looking at the screen, looking at my laptop. And every now and then I catch myself thinking, how did I end up creating a life that leaves so little room for me to actually live it, to experience it? And it's not because I'm unhappy or that I'm ungrateful or that anything's necessarily wrong. But I've started becoming more honest about what I want. Like I've become hyper aware of what I want because I've been thinking about it and what that life that I've been dreaming of would actually look like. So I know one of the things I've been really thinking about it that I know I want to spend a few months in Canada every summer. I want to have my own place there, own my own place there. And if not, be able to have choices of beautiful Airbnbs. I want to be on the water. I want to write books. I want to build my coaching business. I want to really help women in what I do. I want to travel. I want to do Pilates class. I love Pilates, the reformer class. And they've got a great studio here and I want to start going more. I want to meet someone for coffee on a Tuesday afternoon, like I said, just because I can. I want to experience my life while I'm living my life, right? And the more I've been thinking about what I want, the harder it's become for me to pretend that I don't see the gap, which is why today I want to talk about some things that have been on my mind lately. I want to talk about why some of the hardest decisions aren't difficult because you don't know what you want. Sometimes you know exactly what you want, right? You can feel it. You can picture it. You can even describe the life that you want to be living. But the decision still feels hard because there's something valuable on both sides of the coin. Like one side will give you the freedom that you seek, right? But the other side may give you that guaranteed sense of security. One side may feel like the life that you're ready for, right? You're ready to jump into it. Full steam ahead. And the other side may be the life that's supported you up until now. And I think that's what makes this so complicated because it's not always about choosing between something good and something bad or choosing between something good and something better. Sometimes it's about choosing between something that's worked and something you're ready to make more room for. And so I want to talk about that. And then I want to talk about why waiting for certainty may be keeping us stuck longer than we realize. Because I sometimes think we tell ourselves that we're waiting for clarity. Like I think that is probably one of the things that we often hear people say, like, I need clarity. I need to be more clear on what my vision is, what my mission is, where I'm going, like what my purpose is. What I believe really is what we're waiting for is to feel completely safe, right? We're waiting for fear to disappear, like the fear to disappear, for maybe the numbers to make perfect sense, or the timing to feel obvious, or the future to promise us that if we choose it, that we won't lose anything. And I don't think that that's always available, right? Because I believe that some decisions ask us to move before every part of the unknown has been settled. And then finally, I want to talk about what has the potential to change when we stop trying to make one truth wrong so that the other one can be right. Because maybe the part of you that wants more freedom isn't being unrealistic, and maybe the part of you that wants security isn't being afraid. Maybe both parts are just equally true, and they're telling you something important. Because one side's showing you what you want, and the other's showing you what you need to feel supported enough to choose it. So that's what I want to lean into today, into the space where both sides of the coin are allowed to be true. Now, I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we have about decisions is we believe if we really knew what we wanted, that the decision would be easy to make, that the right choice would feel obvious, the fear would disappear, uncertainty would disappear, that the right timing would somehow make itself known. And we just know. Like there would be this moment of clarity where everything inside of us just finally agrees, where one side of the coin becomes so clear that the other side just stops pulling at us. But as I said, I don't believe that that's the case. Like I don't believe that's true. Because what I've come to realize for myself is that I don't think I've been waiting for clarity, right? I just said that I don't think I've been waiting for clarity at all. I think what I've been waiting for is certainty, for that guarantee. And that's different because clarity says, I know what I want. Like I'm clear on that. I know exactly what I want. But then certainty comes in and says, I want to know that if I choose it, everything's going to work out, which I think is what feeds the hesitation, right? Because I want to know exactly how the money will come in, right? Exactly how my business will grow. I want to know exactly how many clients I'll have, that I'll have clients lining up out the door. I want to know exactly how long it's going to take to get all that I desire. And I want to know that if I move towards the life that I want, that I won't regret leaving the security behind that I already have. And that's just not realistic, right? Because I know what I want, but I still want the future. It's like I'm still demanding the future to reassure me that everything's going to line up the way that I want before I choose to step into it. And I've been waiting for that moment where, again, I know not only how everything's going to work out, but that everything will work out. Like I'm looking for that guarantee. And like I said, if I've been honest, I've been wanting the future to guarantee itself, where security feels like a given, where I can see enough of the next step that I just don't feel like I'm asking my whole life to hold its breath. But I know realistically the absolute guarantees of outcomes of what we want, of what we desire, what we hope for. That's just not how life works. And here's the thing. I know there's always risks, right? I know that. Life has risk. Business has risk. Staying where you are has a risk. Leaving where you are has risk. Waiting has risk. And choosing has risk. So I don't think I've been waiting for a risk-free decision necessarily. I think that I've been just waiting for that risk, the risks in life to feel safe enough, like whatever that I'm facing, because I'm looking at both sides of the coin. I'm looking for the risks to feel safe enough that I won't have to feel afraid when I'm choosing to step into my future, the life that I really truly want. And I don't know that we always get that, right? Because if I feel like sometimes we get enough information, enough awareness, enough honesty, truth, evidence that something matters deeply to us. But if we wait on guarantees, if we wait on a guarantee that the risk is going to be worth the reward, then we may keep postponing a life we already know that we want, right? That we are fully clear on. And that can be a really hard pill to swallow because part of me, the part that wants to build my coaching business full time, is telling the truth. Like it just is, right? But part of me, like a really big part of me, wants to feel financially secure, wants that safety that the decision will provide that, and that revelation is also telling the truth, right? That knowing what I want and wanting that freedom and that lifestyle, which I'm partially living, and then knowing that I still want that security part, the known piece, and the fear of the unknown, that's telling me the truth as well. Like they're both telling me truths. So it's not simply knowing that, if I know what I want, the decision should be easy. I think it goes deeper than that. Because if this is really the right decision for me, the one that I've been mulling over for the past couple of years now, I should be able to choose without feeling the tension of what it might cost me. And then again, maybe that's not even true. Maybe some decisions will still feel harder, so will still feel like really hard, even when they're honest ones. Maybe they'll still feel uncomfortable even when they're aligned. Maybe they'll ask us to carry both sides of the coin, right? The desire and the responsibility at the same time. In fact, I think that's closer to the truth than either or. And maybe that's the part that I've been trying to figure out how to sit with. To be able to sit in this space, not whether I know what I want, not to sit just with that, but whether I can be honest about what I want without demanding that the future guarantees every detail before I move towards what I want. And here's something else that I've been realizing as well. I think that one of the reasons some decisions take so long is because we're waiting for a villain, right? We're waiting for the job to become unbearable, the relationship to completely fall apart, the business to stop working, the responsibility to finally become too much, or that a situation becomes so painful that staying no longer feels possible. That will be the catalyst to us moving. But if that happened, the decision would be easier, right? That if something was clearly wrong, if it was obviously harming us, if it stopped working, then we'd feel more justified in making change. We'd have a reference point that we could point to and say, That's why I had to move. That's why I had to leave. That's why something had to change. But here's the thing, hear me out here for a minute. What do you do when none of that happens? Like, what do you do when the thing that you're considering changing isn't terrible? Or when what it has always done is actually supported you? What do you do when the thing you're trying to move beyond is also the thing that helped you get here to this very moment where you're at a crossroads? Because I believe that that's a much harder conversation to have with ourselves, right? Because now you can't simply say, this is bad and I need to leave, or this no longer matches the life I'm trying to create. And yet knowing that still hasn't been enough to make me move, right? Because when I bring myself back into the mix, I have to acknowledge that the life I'm questioning now has worked for me. It worked for me once. Like I was satisfied. I was satisfied by it. But now something's changed. That the life I've built up until now has supported me, that my choices helped me build this life. They've helped me to feel secure in the lifestyle that I'm leaning into. And yet I can still feel that it's not the thing I want to keep building my future around. And that's also true, right? It's just a different kind of honesty because it holds both gratitude and truth at the same time. And I think that's where so many of us find ourselves. We're not in crisis or collapse, but we're in that quiet place where we know something is still working, but at the same time, something inside of us knows it's no longer fulfilling. It no longer fully fits how we are, like where we are in our journey, the season of life that we're in, what we want to build. And the thing is, because it still works, you question yourself and you wonder if you're being unreasonable and grateful, wondering if wanting more means that you're dismissing what you already have. But that's not really true at all. And yet that can make the decision feel heavy because now the cost isn't just about what you might lose if you move. It's also about what you keep giving up, about what you might give up if you stay exactly as you are, where you are, right? Because giving up that goal, that dream, that desire to stay in that safe space because you have that security, that stability, but it doesn't fulfill you, the life that you want to live. But then that desire you have, what you want, you can see it, you can envision it. It's what you want, but there's unknowns. You don't know if it's going to be secure, stable, all of those things. The thing is, when you stay in limbo, it's that you keep giving up time, right? You keep giving up energy, space, your creativity, aliveness, room to breathe, room to imagine, room to become who you keep saying you want more space to be because you're in limbo. And that's the part that can be so easy to overlook because we're thinking that, I have to think either or, that one has to be a villain, one is a hero. But both are true. Both sides of the coin are true. And they're just telling you different truths, asking you to weigh the options. What do you want more? And if you want the life that you want more, the one stepping away from that known security, how are you going to step into it? Right? Are you going to be able to step into it knowing that there's going to be risks, knowing that there's the unknowns, knowing that you don't have a guaranteed outcome? That's the part I think can be really, really hard to look at. Because again, when we think about where we're at and we're thinking, okay, I want to make change, and yet you're not making change and your every day simply looks like the day before, and so on, meaning you do what you do, you handle all the things that you need to handle, but you can feel that gap, right, between the life that's supporting you right now and the life that's asking for more. And I think when we think about what it's costing us, it's not just in the decision of do I stay or do I go? Like, do I stay in this life or do I move into this new unknown? I call it that uncomfort zone. And that's where the possibilities lie, like being in limbo. That's kind of like where I find myself when I say two sides of the coin are equally true. And am I going to allow myself to step into that zone of possibilities of the unknown, not having the guarantees? And I think there's energy there's a lot of energy that it takes to keep living in the middle of these two truths, right? Like what's helped you feel safe and the truth about what you want. And then when you factor in the truth about what has worked and the truth about what you may be giving up if nothing changes, you start to realize that it's not just what you might lose, it's what may never get enough room to become, right? To become real. So yes, you can be grateful for what you have. I definitely know that it's not about being ungrateful. But in the same breath, you no longer can pretend that you don't want something different when you're in this space and you're looking at the life you have and the life you want. And I don't think it's always fear that stops us, because sometimes I think it's just trying to honor two sides of the same coin at the same time. The side that gives you the security, like that known piece of security, and the side that's asking you to trust that security can be created in another way. And that's the unknown space, right? And that's why this kind of decision can feel so hard to move through, because you're not trying to run away from your life. You're just trying to understand what part of your life has done its job and what part of your life is asking to be built differently now. So for me, the shift came when I stopped asking which side is right. And I just started allowing both sides to be right, and shifting my question to what is each side trying to protect? Because the part of me that wants more freedom isn't asking for something wrong. It's not asking me to be reckless. It's me finally admitting that there's a life that I want more room for. And then the part of me that values security isn't a problem. I know that the part of me wanting more freedom is trying to take care of me. It's showing me what's possible, reminding me that there's a life I keep saying I want more room for. And I also know that the part that values security, safety, stability, also wants to take care of me in the sense that it wants to make sure that the life I'm building can actually support the life I'm responsible for. So again, in essence, I believe that they're both trying to take care of me. One's showing me the life I want more room for, the future that I envision, and the other's protecting the life that I've built. And maybe the goal isn't to make one side wrong. Like, I don't believe that it's making one side wrong. It's what I've come to discover. Because maybe the goal is just to understand what each side's trying to tell you, and then decide from a place that includes both truths instead of forcing one of them to disappear. So you see, once I stopped making myself wrong for not moving, I started finally looking at both sides of the coin without needing one side to be the problem, without turning one side into the enemy. Because wanting change isn't wrong, and wanting security isn't wrong either. And so that's where I find myself, right? I'm in this place where I'm seeking that change. I know that I have this known stability, this security, this life that I've built that's brought me to this place, this crossroads. And I know that the vision of the life I want is possible. I've seen glimpses of it. I'm living parts of it, and I know that it's available to me. And it's just being able to look at both sides of the coin and see, how do I build in what I've built? How do I bring that stability, that security into what I want for the future to be for me? And that's where I find myself. So I'd love for you to sit with a few questions this week. The first one would be, have you been thinking more about your future and what you'd like it to be? Like, have you actually taken time to answer the question of, like, what do I want? Like, not after you've got it all figured out or justified it or found ways to talk yourself out of it. Like, not having that full clarity, but really, what do you want? Right? Because I think a lot of the time it's so easy for us to say what we don't want. A lot of people can say, well, I know I don't want this. I know I don't want that. But it's so hard to really articulate what you really want, because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, but, well, that's not possible. Or what if this happens and thus makes this not possible? Right. And so I want you to really think about, like, what do you really want? And then what's your current life providing that genuinely matters to you? Here's another way to look at it. What are you afraid you might lose if you change direction? What are you afraid you'll lose if you don't? Right? There's two sides of it. Like, if you change direction, what are you afraid of? And what are you afraid of that you'll lose if you don't change direction? Because both of those can be true. And yet they both can give you valuable information to help you make that decision, to make a cleaner decision for you. And like this, there's no guarantees. If we're looking for guarantees, we're never going to really find them, because life doesn't work that way. We know things happen, right? And so if you're looking for that guarantee, I'm asking you to just sit with the idea that both sides of the coin can be true for you. The stability and the known and the unknown, those both can be true for you. And you can still decide, like you can still hold both truths without forcing either one to disappear and without making either truth wrong. So listen, I know it can be really hard to sit with a truth like this or a few truths that are keeping you in a loop trying to figure out what you want, especially when what's going through your mind could be that you want this, but there's a lot of like those unknowns that attach themselves to the vision and that you can start yourself focusing on. And I know it can be even harder still when you keep it all bottled up inside and you don't share it, or maybe you don't even feel safe or comfortable sharing it. Maybe even feeling like if you'd be seen by yourself or others to be ungrateful for all that you have now, which is one of the reasons why I've been talking about the faceless and nameless gatherings, this virtual community that I'm creating where I think is really important, where we come together to support each other with no names, no faces, right? I say like there's no names, no faces, no titles. Because I truly believe that we can have a place like that where we're not looking for advice, but we're looking for a space to be real, to share our truths, right? Truths for us that don't require fixing or that someone telling you what to do. So, because sometimes I believe, sometimes you just need a place where you can tell the truth, where you can say, I know what I want, but it's difficult. And I'm trying to figure it out what I want to do with the truths that I'm faced with. And so, as I said, I'm creating this space, the Faceless and Nameless Gatherings, for conversations like this one. And I'm going to be running the first one in July. I'm really excited to do this. I have a few women that are already saying yes. All I have to do now is just pick a date and a time, and then I'll be sharing that with you. These are going to be small because I feel that large gatherings can sometimes feel like you get lost in the shuffle, right? Which is why I'm going to keep them small, intimate. As I said, I've already have a few women have said yes to the first one. I'm looking for a few more. And listen, even if you don't get in on the first one, I'll add you to the list for the next one, not my email list, but an actual list so that you can be a part of the gatherings. And once the gatherings are in place, I'll send you a personal invite. So you won't have to worry about missing out. If you don't get in on the first one in July, you'll be added to the next one because I truly feel like this is something that's needed. And I want to be able to be that person to provide this space. It's just really called to me to do this. So if that speaks to you and it sounds like something you'd like to be a part of, you'll find my email in the show notes. Just shoot me an email saying yes to the gatherings, and I'll add you to the list for the first one or the next one or the ones afterwards. Because like I said, this is something that I want to be a continuous thing that I provide. I think one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is the willingness to stop turning every difficult decision into evidence against ourselves. Because maybe you're not confused at all. Maybe you're not stuck or lacking clarity at all. Maybe you're just simply standing between two truths. One that says, this is what I want, and the other that says, this feels hard because, and then you have a list of whys, why it's hard because of the known, right? What you want is the unknown, and what, as far as like how it's gonna work out. And I think that a lot of us get stuck on the how, when really it's just knowing what we want is the first step. And so perhaps the work right now really isn't in the choosing. Maybe it's simply understanding what you're holding, allowing yourself to stop making either side wrong, and then choosing from the truth instead of from pressure. And maybe that's where I want to leave this conversation today. Not with an answer, but because I don't think this is the kind of conversation where the answer just comes because we've named something, right? I believe naming can change something. Absolutely. It makes it real. It also makes it harder to keep pretending that you don't know what you know. And it also helps us to stop making ourselves wrong for standing in the middle of two truths, because I can know what I want, but I can also understand why it feels hard to choose it. Both can be true. And maybe for today, that's enough to stop turning the pause into evidence against ourselves. And that's it. That's what I want to talk about today. So thank you for spending time with me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.